Again, it's a pleasure to welcome you to this week's edition of Scale of Justice here on Global Television. I am Uyi Agmofwegbe. Today, we're going to turn our attention to an issue that has to do with employment and the contracts that actually guides employment. For every engagement of any kind, any nature, there are terms, there are conditions, whether they are written or just orally agreed. However, in this regard, what we have seen from time immemorial is accusation and counter-accusation of breach of these terms. We have seen people who have talked about being illegally dismissed, others say they were unlawfully or wrongly or unduly disengaged from service. And this happens more often in the private sector. For some of these people, you see them turn to the law, use the service of a lawyer to seek redress. For others, they think the process, the legal process, that is too long drawn out, and therefore they leave it to God, as we say in this part of the world. However, what exactly does the law say about issues around engagement of an employee in the private sector, and what the terms should be beyond and above that? What should be the grounds on which such can be, well, if you like, disengaged? In other words, if two persons have come into a contract to say, I'm an employee, I want to employ you to be in my employ, at what point can they decide to disengage? Who can make that call? Is it both parties unanimously agreeing, or can one party initiate such a disengagement? At what point should we be talking about unlawful dismissal or termination of employment? Those are the issues we're looking at for you on the program today. We take a quick break now. When we return, my guest will help us find perspectives and insights. My guest on the program this week is Ziggy Usman, a legal practitioner, one who understands the dynamics around this conversation. Barrister Usman, I'll say thank you to you for coming on the program. Let's begin by
Thank you for having me.
Great. Let's look at, first of all, what constitutes employment. Is it enough to say I am your employer, or that you have employed me just because I run errands for you or I deliver some kind of service in your organization?
Okay, and to begin with, there are things that have not been addressed first and foremost in terms of employment in Nigeria. And one of those things, we take it for familiarity and lack of knowing what the law actually says surrounding the word employment in Nigeria. Now, there are some laws stipulated under the Nigerian law and the Constitution itself that give those provisions and how to go about those things. But basically, one of those areas, the major things that normally happen is that the employment per se doesn't come formally, like in the private sector. Formally, in the sense that, of course, government does, they try it because they give offer, and that offer will spell out terms and conditions of what you're supposed to do and how to go about what you need to do. But going back to the other way around, the private sector, those things are not like that. It's very rare except for those multinational companies, but the other ones in the middle class and other people, you find out that the employment procedure is just that: come, interview the person, see his CV and whatever, then tell him to start work the following day without anything. And no employment letter, nothing to show, he starts work. No job prescription, nothing. All they tell him is that you can start work on Monday. And he's busy, happy, because God has answered his prayer. He has been looking for a job. And one of the reasons that the reason behind those things is because of the lack of, the rate of unemployment in this country. That's why people will just jump into the boat. They don't know where it's heading to, and they don't know how the boat management is being taken care of. So all they have is that as far as it's a boat, I am not stranded, standing in one place. At least it's moving. Let me just jump in. I will get my way in. So you find out after a period of time, they work 5, 10 years, no Even the promotion, they will just tell you where you have been promoted verbally. No any documentation to show that this person. Of course, they will end up giving you one ID card like that to show that you are from that place, and that is all. And then you see your alert, maybe from personal account or from that account of that company or whatever. But in as much as alert is an alert for you, you don't question that. And all those things goes to the issue of illegality, because it doesn't follow the criteria of what a normal employer supposed to do to employ the person that is employing. So the employee now comes in, G3, afraid of sack. He tries to put his best by all means, because anytime they can call him, you're fired. And when you're fired, no any documentation, or it's only few that have the conscience that tell you that, yeah, go and write your resignation letter. But you are writing resignation letter, no employment letter. So how does it corroborate? Because there must be something.
Right.
There's no foundation.
What are you resigning from?
What are you resigning from, to start with? Because it was a verbal discussion between two parties, and then I say no problem, and then maybe some of them will tell you that, will you like to take so amount as your salary? You say no problem, I will start from there as a starting point. Let's see how it will go. I will give you 3 months for probation or whatever, and after which you do. In government setup, at least they are trying, because they follow part of the rules to some extent, because with those letters of offer and other things, it spelled out some things, and then you stay also for probation for I think 3 months or thereabout before they now pay you. Not that they do not pay you, they pay you cumulatively. That 3 months they add it up together and pay you at once. That's how they do it. I don't know whether they've changed it of recent, but previously that's how I know they do their own. So that is just the basic. The foundation within which employment is done in this country is not based known to law to some extent, because they go out of the context of the provision of the law to do that in order to have the employees in their own palms to control them at any point in time. So technically and basically, they don't have much rights, so to speak, as far as they are concerned, because they are not even aware that they are being protected by the law. That's the issue.
You see, it's interesting because there's a bit of poverty of the mind regarding this issue. You talked about, for example, the high rate of unemployment in the country. People just want to have a job, want to be engaged, no matter how bad the conditions may be. But at least let's not be stagnant. Let's continue to move, even though we're not so sure where the vehicle is heading.
Very well.
But let's talk about how that now we understand there's a law. How come we are not able to drive this law in such a way that such employers understand the gravity of the offense or even crime that they are committing?
Okay. And to start with, there are basically some laws which have been put in place in order to guide this issue of employer-employee relationship to some extent. Now, but most of these things protect the employee, because he is the one that is being vulnerable to start with. Now we have the Constitution itself protects the employee at any point in time in order for him to know that he's safe in as much as those things have been done. Now we have the National Industrial Court. We have the Labor Act 2004. We have the National Industrial Act 2006. That was when it was created, the National Industrial Court. Then we also have the employees' rights under the Nigerian law 2017. All these are laws made to protect the right of the employee against the employer. Now, but most of them don't even know that those rights exist to start with. And going further to see the reasons, the rights of the employee per se. Now, he has a right. One, a right to equal pay to every job done. Now, he have also a right of association, that's unionism, that they are to join their congresses, the NLC, TUC, they have that right to join.
Even in the private sector?
Yes, you have the right to do that, because the law gives you rights to join. Because if they deny you that, it goes to the constitutional provision that gives you rights to freedom of association and dissociation, which is a fundamental human right. So that is one of the bases. So those are some of the rights that they have as employees to work with. And the reason behind termination, that the employer will wake up one day and tell you you're fired, you are sacked, you are suspended, it must follow a criteria. There's a criteria within which, and these are carefully made by law to protect also the employee. Now, the right of discrimination, where there's a discrimination from then gender, that you are a female or male, or you are Igbo or Hausa, based on ethnicity and religion, Christian or Muslim, is one of the the grounds for an employee to take up the employer if that thing happened. That is, if the discrimination is being put in place, and then some of the issues is that he has not been given freedom and permission to join those unions that he's supposed to join as well. It's part of it. Then we have this whistleblowing thing where the employee now notice some things and then report any misconduct, and based on that they say you are fired. He can also take it up. These are the grounds within which he can formulate and take up the employer properly and challenge them before the court. And the court is always ready to welcome that, because the Constitution, under Section 46 and 47 of the 1999 Constitution, gave the employee the right to go to right of audience. First and foremost, 46, right to audience, and 47 give them right to justice. So when they get to court, they will get what they wanted, not that they will just go and mess them up. So they have been protected to some extent. Not only the employee, and any other Nigerians can also allude to that section and take advantage of it once their rights have been infringed. That is enshrined in the 1991 Constitution based on the fundamental human rights, as it were, as is stated in Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution. So these things are there. But since people do not know, lack of awareness, and then the mindset of, I don't have been looking for a job for decades and I have an opportunity, let me just jump in. You'll find out that a graduate, if they pay him 30,000, a graduate, they pay him 25,000 naira, 30,000 naira. Now, come to think of it. As a graduate, when you are in school, your parents, your money that you spend in a month in school is closely maybe around 50,000 naira or thereabout. Here you are now, you are now a graduate and you are working after doing your youth service, and they pay you 25,000 naira, 30,000 naira. What will you do with it? It will take you nowhere. And that is one of the reasons that makes them to do extra other things to make sure that they get some money, so that to make needs met. Now, based on those issues, if you look at them critically, it gives a window within which to make them vulnerable to a lot of the vices and other things, because they don't have a sense of belonging that they ought to get. And those employers take advantage of that, because there is no job. We have a high number of non-employed people in the market, so you do whatever you want to do. You can sack this person today, employ this one tomorrow, because if you say, everybody will come. Once you put a notice, employment, you are looking for 2, you will see 10 people in front of your office. Right. So that is just one of the things.
I spoke with a young man just yesterday, and one of the things he talked about was this issue of workplace concerns, relationship between an employer and employee. Now, this is a private medical facility where he had concerns alongside a few of his colleagues. So he goes to the wife of the CMD to express some of those concerns. And the wife of the CMD, who happens to be the de facto head of operations, is concerned. And the next thing she says is, are you trying to start a looter in my facility? Now, I'm saying that to say that you and I know, Barrister Usman, that a lot of private organizations are very intolerant when it comes to unionism. In fact, there are those who tell you as you're right at the door that, look, we do not tolerate or entertain exactly this kind of practice here. How liable are such employers under the law?
Under the law? Well, first and foremost, there is a right for them to join those associations.
That's what the employees?
Yes, it is a right. So, but like I said, they try to make sure that you don't even get to know that you can do those things by not allowing you to do those things. That's why sometimes if the labor now announce that, okay, they are going on embarking on strike on a certain day, you find out that some private sector, they'll tell you that if you go, you're on your own.
Just go home from there.
Just go from there. So you don't have any option. That means you have been deprived from your right as an employee to participate in those unionism activities, because even the ministry, the federal government, the constitution itself recognizes that. That is why you see that the Ministry of Labor and Productivity is being created purposely because of that. Purposely because of these labor-related issues. We know before now, when during Obasanjo era, those ministries were not there, so they just call people from everywhere, they come and form a team to do that. And you see how labor activities used to be back then, when the people like Oshomole were in the helm of affairs that time. Everything stands still, and it works for everybody. But going forward, the government felt that, okay, I think this introduction of this ministry will help a long way by curtailing some of these things. Of course, they are doing their best, but it's still not enough, because they need to go beyond that, because a lot of private sector take their time, take advantage of innocent Nigerians, all in the name of they don't have option, and I'm trying to help them. And the whole story is not like that. For many of us that I've never been into any employment ever since I graduated from my university, I finished my youth service, and the only thing I received from government is that normal alawi they gave
for NYC.
And I remember those days, I served at this corporate affairs commission back then, and they were giving us some stipends like that as allowances, and I felt that money was small. I called some of my corporate colleagues then. Come on, these things, so how do you go about it? Everybody left me. They said they can't do anything. It's good, though, but nobody can confront the management. You know, I took the bull by the horn. I wrote to the management myself and put on behalf of everybody. They said they will not sign. I signed and gave them. Not because of anything, because I said it's not a crime. You are just trying to ventilate something, and especially we are not fighting them. We're trying to make them understand that, okay, this money they are giving us back then is not enough. They should increase it a little bit, because then, as at that time, the minimum salary they pay a graduate in that place was 170. That was back then. I think 172 plus in between. Minimum salary they pay the person that they employ today in that organization.
Entry level.
Entry level, that time. So you can imagine you being given 15,000 naira or thereabout that time. So I think around 15,000 naira they give. And I felt, no, it's not enough, because by the time you do X, Y, Z with it, and then, of course, we're getting alawi from the main federal government as well to accommodate. But if you put them together, they are not up to 30,000 naira put together. So, you know, it's not something that you can. So I wrote this thing. Everybody ran away from me. Nobody, all of the coppers around there, they said they can't do that. That's only me that have the liver. I said, no, I can do that. The reason why I did that, not because I am a stubborn person, no. Of course, I belong to a unionism. We did this unionism thing far back then in university. Even at the law school, I was involved in anything politics. Even at the law school stage, I was part of. I was involved in those things. So I know it's something that gives people freedom and allow you to ventilate any grievances you have. And the worst case scenario is, let's come to the negotiating table.
And have a dialogue.
And once that has been done, we can do this, we cannot do this, we cannot do that, we cannot do this. And it's simple. But lo and behold, guess what happened? I did not benefit that thing I did. It was immediately after we pass out, then they now increase. Because, you know, have this
for subsequent batches.
Yes, because, you know, government thing, you have to pass through this.
Bureaucratic.
Do table from table. But at least, when I now heard that it worked, I know I'm happy, because at least my effort has not been in vain, even though I did not benefit. So how many people in Nigeria that have those guts to do that thing, to carry out that thing? First and foremost, at that time, I was not even supposed to be a copper in that place. I have like 3 offers at the same time. 3 offers. Both. So I choose where I want to go, because I wanted to please my oga, by one of my boss that time. So I said, let me go to that place that he said. That's why I went for that season. And the other 2, I gave it to some other people that doesn't have place to serve. Because some people in Abuja here, some people doesn't have, a lot of them will graduate, post final this, and they'll be chasing them here and there, no place to serve. So I gave them my own slot to go and serve on those places. I go with them. This is my friend. Please help me. I'm supposed to be here. See my letter, but I want him to take over from me because I have another place. They said, no problem. They will do that. And that was how those people were able to get those things. So many people doesn't have that courage, and because they don't know, it's not because I'm a lawyer per se, no, because I thank God for my school, when I was then in my university, I was able to meet a professor that were able to tutor me and tell me the reality of public sector and give me the picture of what I'm trying to face outside. And I was able to know those things and understood and now draw my line. Okay, this place I will not pass. That's why I could refuse to do a lot of things.
We need to take a quick break now, everyone. When we return, we'll be taking a look at an issue that is much more contemporary within the context of the conversation we're having on the program right now. Do stay with us. Barrister Usman, you and I know of the issue of minimum wage across the country right now. Every state is announcing what they can pay, ranging from 70,000 all the way to something around 83, 85,000 naira.
Yeah.
Of course, whether these states will be able to pay as and when due is a discussion we probably can have another day. But for today, let's talk about the private sector end of it, because we understand that a minimum wage is supposed to be the barest that should be paid to workers. Yes, either in the state or in the country, whether they're in the private sector or in the public sector.
Exactly.
A lot of employers in the private sector have already said long before today that, look, we cannot pay even 50,000 as minimum wage, let alone 70,000. Does the law envisage this kind of scenario too?
Well, I would say the law has envisaged those things and then put it at the back of their mind when they were drafting and putting these laws into place. And you know, when they say something is a law, it's a law. Anything short of it, you have already violated that law. Now, the National Assembly do not always stop on just trying to just make it just simple as it were before. This time around, it was it would be tougher by imposing some sanctions on any defaults from those organizations that default this particular increment that the government set in place, that okay, this is the minimum wage that they should pay civil servant of 70,000 naira. Of course, federal government have taken the lead by taking the responsibility and doing what they're supposed to do and backdating that law to start working from May, 1st May. So most civil servants, probably they will start giving them, or they must have started giving them, that I don't know because I'm not a civil servant, I'm not one. But that was what they did. Now, for the private sector, they are also supposed to emulate and take the necessary step, what the federal government have done. States have done their own. In the time past, this 23,000 naira, 30,000 naira that Yaradua increased that time, Yaradua like, I did. Do you know that some local government have not even implemented their own many years ago? They still maintain that 6,000 naira since. That's what they pay their local government staffs. That is how bad it is. So if these people will do that, now the private sector, the only people that they will focus on is private sectors in the range of Abuja, Lagos, Port Harcourt, and probably Kano.
Big cities.
These are big cities that they can look upon and now torchlight and make sure that these things are carried out effectively. But going back to other states, you think that everybody will still do what he still feel he can do, and nobody will take them up on anything.
So implementation of the law is going to be a challenge.
It's going to be a challenge. That is why the Ministry of Labor ought to take this campaign down to the grassroots and make people understand. And because it's all about sensitization. If the people, the workers, the employees understand that, come on, this is a right and you can go, you can fight for it. Once they understand that, then it will go a long way making them to put their employers on check so that they will do the appropriate thing. Because for me, the 70,000 naira is nothing even to write home about. Not to talk of making it to be a minimum wage. What is 70,000 naira? They cannot buy you a bag of rice. And then how do you expect to, family of 4, 5, some people have 8 children, and then you give them 70,000 naira as minimum wage, then what do they do with it? To go and do what? Even transport fare now, to transport yourself, it's something else. Where you pay drop of 500 naira, 1,000 naira before, you pay 2,500, 3,000 naira as if you are going to another state. But it's just
even intracity.
And you pay.
Incidentally, I'm afraid this is the much time we're allowed to take. But from this conversation at this point in particular, Barrister Usman, it will appear I see a bunch of a litany of litigations coming up in this regard because, like you rightly pointed out, this is now a law. It's not something that is at the whims and caprices of state governors or local government chairmen. It's a law, and that law is universal as far as Nigeria is concerned. But let's see what the implementation will look like going forward. Barrister Ziggy Usman, thank you so very much.
Thank you
for coming to help us with some insights in this regard. This is where we're leaving it, everyone. Thank you for watching. You are with Global Television.